Okay, let's go ahead and get going. I hope everybody still has a few brain cells left to help wrap this up with us. Wow, it was just a lot of great engagement over the last couple of days. Very, very thankful for you guys coming out from all over the country to be with us. We're going to try to keep the wrap up as short as it can be, but don't want to unnecessarily rush it if there are things that you would like to bring up. So the conference IO system is up right now if you want to submit questions on it. But I'm just going to go ahead and proceed through the wrap-up. And there's a couple of things that I wanted to ask in particular, starting with if you have any feedback after this that you would like to send along, specific questions, comments, feel free to send them to the people's names that are listed here. Also, specifically to the NASA presenters, I have a list of actions that I've heard about that we have coming out of this. Is there anything that we need to talk about that would be beneficial, like folks in your session that said, hey, is it all right if we get this from you, or can you guys provide that kind of data? Is there anything that would be beneficial to talk about in this audience, that you want to bring up? Yeah. So we should have a mic over here. So there's a mic over here and a mic over there. If someone wouldn't mind just passing that along to the next person that asked the question.
The second to last session, Al, they were going to put a bug in your ear about getting us a list of the substitution delays.
The substitution delays?
Yeah, did you hear that?
Substitution rules?
Rules. Thank you. Substitution rules for the new.
Okay. And how will those be provided? The mic, please. There should be one on that side, I thought.
Hello. So you said that you're distributing the material. I think we just want to distribute it either with that or...
Oh, great, yeah. That's easy.
Okay.
So is Sandy what you have already listed on the slide, what you wanted, the rules?
Yeah, we'd have to supply additional things.
Okay.
So
how would you like to handle that? Send it to us and we can distribute it with the rest of the materials?
yeah, I think so.
Okay.
It seems... so...
Okay, great. Yeah, just send it to me. Thank you, Melissa. Thank you, Mike. And speaking of that, question that's come up, and Easter, where are you? Thank you. All right. Do we have a date on when the slides will be available on the website? Okay, great. So thank you, Easter. She's going to send it to the webmaster tomorrow, so maybe tomorrow or maybe Monday. And so I'll verify that they're there and then send a link out to remind you as well. And does that give you enough time, Melissa, as well, to provide that information? Probably? Okay. All right. Yeah, so if not, then she can provide it later as well, right? And it'll be on that same site. Thanks for that reminder, Sandy. Links to the video as well. I think that actually is going to be about a week later. And I know some of you have already asked, hey, can we see the videos, for the other sessions? we have, at last count, was 187 questions, but I think I just got an update. On the conference, 193 on the Conference IO system. So, as you recall, I signed us up to take a cut at those. But the trick to that is some of those were answered mid-session, right? So we'll take a cut at that. That will not be available by Monday, but we're going to start working on it. And thank you, by the way, for providing those comments. I think it's going to be a great tool for us to use as we look at what would be a number one webinar. You know, maybe we can see some trends in the data there in terms of follow-up content. Speaking to the team again about, you know, follow-up actions, there were some things I heard about the arrival analysis we did on ETAs at the last SWIFT. Let's see, Andrew Churchill, you did that, right? Yeah. And Ilhan, did you ever meet up with Andrew Churchill on that? Okay. So, Andrew, if you wouldn't mind talking with Ilhan, sorry to make it all person to person here, but wanted to follow up on my actions. And I think there were a couple about obtaining data that we have to look into. I heard a lot about EOBT accuracy requirements, and I have a sense that we probably need to do a little bit more work there of actually explaining where we are as a community on that in a way that de-identifies individual operators. So that's something that we have to think about. Lots of common comments about tech transfer, what's available, what's not, what's been transferred to the FAA. But I think some of those were answered earlier. Sean took a good stab at it. That was all I had on my list. So I kind of went through a little laundry list here. I wanted to make for sure that that was cleared up. So let me look and see if anyone has a question online. Oh, that's a good one. Is the wrap-up really scheduled for 1 hour? Okay, great question. Yeah. No. So let's get moving. That's I understand. But please keep in mind, we are looking for those webinar needs, and if you have any, let us know. So here's where we are on the waterfall, if you will, not waterfall, but the progress indicator. We're wrapping up in our last year, as has been said. You know, so we want to use that last year wisely to continue to enter questions and tech transfer what we've learned. We had a great question in one of the earlier sessions about is the ATD-2 team still going to be available after the end of September of 20? And you heard the answer in terms of continued engagement. So please take advantage of this last year on our project to, you know, leverage our expertise, if you will. And you've met a lot of the experts on the team. You know, let us be of help. This is Mike Huffman's slide, and that was great, Mike, having the session with you and Carol and Eric today. And you know, TFDM is coming to you, right? And if you haven't heard it a number of times in the breakout sessions, now's the time to start preparing for that. Many of you have seen the work we started showing this morning in the breakout, as well as the demo session. We have our last year. A big portion of it is focused on this, so we have additional lessons learned in this area we're excited about. So this is just a reminder to stay tuned. This is from Josh Gustin's Swift slides. I plan to support that personally myself, and I would encourage others in the community that want to engage with the data. This is the venue. And, you know, it's increasingly becoming a mix of both business types and technical types, which is exactly what you need when you're doing these kind of analyses. And so I'd encourage you to participate in that as well. And thanks to Delta for hosting that. We had the session earlier where we got some feedback on some of the future work, but it seemed like the feedback was more on either real near-term stuff or questions about UTM. Since that point, I have had some good hallway conversations with some of you about what are the types of services that might help. And but if you have additional ideas, please continue to reach out to us, because we are wrapping up the feedback that we have and the latest thinking on that October 17th. And I called that data-driven finale on the previous slide because we're not planning to wait until all the planning is done. We're actually wanting to start to try to see what we can do now to head in that direction. One quick perspective slide, and then I'm going to turn it over to my project boss here, Mr. Sean England. But some of you have seen this. I made some minor tweaks to it. I wanted to leave you with kind of this perspective slide, which is we have all these awesome big systems in the NAS, the 3 Ts, you've heard them, the ERAM, STARS, and SWIM. You know, essentially billion-dollar systems that have been developed that do a lot of work. And, you know, you can look across there and say, well, where are we headed in the future? You know, there's all this uncertainty, you know, that exists. And, you know, some of the work that we've done on ATD-2, starting in phase 1, we had to build our own internal model of essentially all of those systems in a way that could meet operational fidelity. You know, we're putting stuff in front of operational users, and it was really important that it be accurate. We used that and started exchanging new data, building up the tactical surface metering, which you heard folks explain, and we had a great session on that, as well as overhead stream scheduling. And it was only after we were done with the phase 1 that we then learned those lessons and rolled them into phase 2, which built upon that. And we started publishing TTP, consistent with the future TFDM TTP feed. Controller flat strip integration, so data that's been locked in controllers' brains for all these years. You know, great information, making that available to the decision support, making decision support available to them. Strategic surface metering, stretching out into that strategic realm, pre-scheduling with EOBTs, which is so foundational to the future of the NAS, in my opinion. And then now what we're working on is this multi-airport scheduling with TOS. And near real-time predictive analytics. Near real-time, what can we do and turn around answers in you know, a 2-minute time frame? So what is really awesome from the perspective of ATD-2 now, after all of that work, our viewpoint of the future, in my opinion, has changed, and in my opinion, it's also a very positive one. You know, earlier slide I had a sunset, but I was recently at Gulf Shores Beach 3 weeks ago. And this beautiful sunrise came up, and I was like, you know, the sunrise has a different feeling to it. You know, it's got hope. You've got the whole day there. And for me, in my perspective right now, there's just so many changes that are going on that are very positive in the NAS. We've been waiting for them for some time, but the 3 Ts are coming together, SWIM's coming together. You know, so I have a very optimistic outlook on the future. But one thing I know for sure is there's no way that any one of us can do it alone. And, you know, I think Lauren's message this morning is also one that we've been saying often, which is collaboration is key, you know, and often we come from this from a perspective of our own experience and our own background, but to just take a moment to listen to other people's perspectives and work that into the solution is absolutely critical. So thank you for being a part of this collaborative event with us. And I think this takes us to our last slide, Sean.
Yeah, so Al promised to give me some time to share my perspectives, and while I'm doing that, continue to put your questions for Al into the conference IO system, and he'll address those when I'm done. So, don't have any slides. I took an inspiration from Lauren this morning and have a few notes written on paper, but we've had several people take us on walks down memory lane here the last couple of days, and so I'm going to do a little bit of the same. It was September 2014, 5 years ago this month, that I was asked to take over leadership of ATD-2. And at that time, we were transitioning from pre-formulation, where we'd been out soliciting ideas from stakeholders, into formulation, where we actually turned it into a project. And that formulation effort produced our level 1 requirements. And I'll briefly go over those with you. And what my perspective was as I thought about, are we able to do these level 1 requirements? So the first one was develop an IAD system, an integrated arrival departure surface system. And I said, we can do that. I know we can. We have a solid foundation of technologies in hand and an awesome team. We can do that one. The next one was enable surface CDM, and that really came out of our collaborative arrangement with the FAA to do this demonstration in Charlotte, as it turned out. And I felt good that we could do that as well, because we had this solid ConOps that had been developed over many, many years with the surface CDM team, the collaboration between FAA and industry. A lot of operational expertise had gone in developing that ConOps, so that looked doable too. The third one was quantify the benefits, that we were shooting to demonstrate, particularly in the areas of efficiency and predictability. And I'm saying, hey, we're NASA, we can quantify things, we're good there. Demonstrate the technologies in an operational environment. That was our fourth level 1 requirement. I felt really good about that because I've been doing that at NTX for 20 years. We knew how to do field demonstrations. The fifth level 1 requirement was transfer the technologies, and I will add, and knowledge, to FAA and industry being the operators, the solution providers and that support them. I had some questions about that, because this is a baton handoff, if you will, and is the other partner really ready to receive that baton handoff? And of course, we could just check the box and say, we did our part, we got that done, but you really want that successful tech transfer to FAA and industry. Very challenging. On the FAA side, it was challenging because of the timing. The timing was crazy because Mike got his final investment decision and contract award in 2016 before we even started the field demonstration. So this was going to be a non-traditional tech transfer from the beginning. That wasn't NASA handing off something for the FAA to go do the FID with. They already had their final investment decision. He had his requirements largely set. So how was that going to work? But the way things developed, and we got this really positive relationship with TFDM where they were inviting us into their design reviews and coming to Charlotte to see how our joint field demo was working. It really turned that question or challenge into a very positive thing, because we got to see real-time tech transfer happening. They would ask us questions in those meetings, and we were able to report what we'd learned the week before, the month before in the field demo in Charlotte. That was really cool and a lot of fun. And I'd cite the TTP, the TFDM Terminal Publication Service, as another real highlight of that very positive real-time tech transfer. So that was really cool. The industry tech transfer also had challenges, because what does industry really need to know? What do they need to implement? We had a government-furnished example of what the operators would need in Charlotte, but there were already a lot of industry solutions in this space. So what specific things did they need from NASA to be successful in their attempt to get ready for TFDM? And so to try to address that challenge, we engaged in multiple venues with industry operators and the solution providers, and we tried to listen about what they would need. And we tried to respond by delivering documentation and through in-person engagements and through webinars or remote demos. And this is an example, the ultimate example of our engagement in person here is this workshop. So thanks so much for being here. As Al says, thanks for supporting this workshop. And I hope that we are being successful in this tech transfer to industry. And as Al notes, we have one more year to go. We are still listening. So please let us know what we can do to help you be successful as you get ready for TFDM. So with that comment about the tech transfer challenges, our fifth level 1 requirement, I want to move on to some thanks. And I first want to thank our FAA partners. And I'll start with NextGen, with the ANG folks that have been our partners in IADS RTT throughout this whole process. There's a lot of incredible grunt work that goes into making a field demo happen. And our ANG partners really did a lot of that grunt work for us. And so I appreciate that immensely. And looking at the PMO, the Project Management Organization, TFDM, obviously, they come to mind. Mike and his team have been really great, been very helpful. One thing that I don't think people realize, often remember, is that AEFS wasn't supposed to go to Charlotte. So they sucked it up and deployed flight strips to Charlotte for this ATD-2 field demo. And it's been really cool to see that preview of what TFDM is going to look like with the strips and the decision support tool in use in Charlotte for a couple of years now. I think TBFM can be underappreciated as well. They really invested a lot to make this happen. The interface to the overhead stream, that's been really gratifying to see how that worked, and TBFM worked really hard to make that happen. And then Josh's, his is hard to say, CIMP, the Comm Info Network people within the program management organization. Obviously SWIM, I mean, ATD-2 is driven with SWIM, so that's key. But also, really behind the scenes that only a few people had exposure to was how hard it was to go through the architecture review boards that we had to go through to get the 3 interfaces we needed in place to make ATD-2 happen in the field. They were our guides through that very difficult and challenging process, and very much appreciate it. And so FAA, I know I'm forgetting, the system requirements folks, AJV, they were very helpful and engaged throughout the process, and I'm sure I'm forgetting some other FAA orgs. But let me turn to NACA. NACA's been really great partners throughout this effort and at all levels and everywhere. But let me focus on Pete Slattery and John Short, our 2 national NACA reps for ATD-2. Their fingerprints are all over this system, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. They've been great to work with and really good partners, and couldn't have done it without them. And then our field demo partners also include the operator side, the airports and the airlines. And so Charlotte and DFW have both been great airport partners, official ATD-2 field demo partners, and we couldn't have done it without them. And then a huge thanks to both American and Southwest as our airline leads for ATD-2. They both invested a lot of resources to make this thing be successful. And I think they need to be recognized for that investment and their forward-leaning attitude that they adopted. And wasn't it great to see them both up here on the panel talking about phase 3 together? That multi-carrier environment is something that we've been looking for a long time. In addition to the official air carrier field demo partners, I wanted to recognize the other carriers that have been very supportive in the various venues we've had engagements with. And I would highlight the collaborative decision making, the Next Gen Advisory Committee, NIWIC groups, and the SWIFT Forum. Those 3 places have been really fruitful areas of engagement for ATD-2. And that engagement with the operators, I think everyone on my team, on Al's team, my old team, will tell you that that keeps us grounded. It makes our research really relevant to the real world problems that we're trying to solve. So thank you for that. And then finally, the ATD-2 team, incredibly talented and dedicated group of people that I was very privileged to work with. I would be very concerned about overlooking someone if I were to try to list people by name. So I'm going to turn my thanks to Al. He's the heart and soul of ATD-2 and embodies the team, and he will relay our thanks to the people on the team. And I think one thing that really comes through with Al is his emphasis on collaboration and his heart for collaboration. And you see that here with all the people that you've engaged with. So thanks so much for making that happen.
Wow, thank you, Sean. I'm going to go through these questions while I'm kind of contemplating what to say to Sean, too. No, that's great. And there are just so many people to thank, and I know we are trying to wrap this up as well. But I do want to get to these questions that folks had here. Can we get the attendees list with contact info? We plan to send some de-identified contact info out, meaning like here's who's from what company, but is there any legal reason why we can't send out contact info that I'm not aware of? Does anyone from the NASA side know?
We gave people the opt-out option. So
we did? Okay.
With that, I think we can share the list.
Okay, thank you. So, yeah, we'll send that out as well, make that a part of the page. That was the plan, right, Easter, to make that a part of one of the pages? It's going on the website. Okay, great, thank you. Approximately when do we think we'll have the 193 questions answered? Yeah, I'd rather not speculate on that, but it's not going to be right away because some of those questions are duplicates and some of them may just be hard to answer, period, and some of them we may have to reach out to others on. So I would say don't expect it within a month. I'm sorry, but it probably will take at least that long.
I think you could maybe, let me propose a two-stage effort where you compile a list, a deduplicated list of questions and get those out there and say these are the questions and maybe a status update on what ones are going to be addressed in the time frame.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good because that doesn't require us to answer them as a part of that strategy. At least we get them out there and dedupe them. So with that in mind, it may be the tech transfer time frame, so we have another major tech transfer event coming up at the end of this month, of which these materials will be a part of. And we have some other goodies in there too for you.
And you reminded me of one thing I wanted to say when I was babbling about the tech transfer stuff. A challenge that I didn't mention on the industry tech transfer was the timing in which you needed the information. So because of the relative timing between Mike's TFDM program and our ATD-2 research, you couldn't wait until the end of 2020 when we would normally do the tech transfer deliverable. So as you saw on that earlier slide, the progress indicator chart, there were 3 pre-planned tech transfers, one at the end of each phase. We did one last September. We'll do the second one this September. And then we've done continuous tech transfers throughout, all in an effort to try to get the information to you as fast as it was ready so that you could be as ready as you could be for TFDM. So one thing I wanted to emphasize is why we've structured the tech transfers the way we have on ATD-2.
Right. Yeah, and the list of all of those engagement venues themselves, the informal are a part of the formal tech transfer as well. But and the last question on the list here is actually one suggestion to ask, I guess maybe both Mike and Leidos folks, I know Eric's still here, your assessment, I think the question is, the gist of it is how you feel about the status of the tech transfer to industry.
Of industry or to the FAA?
To industry, yeah. It's got 12 upvotes. I don't know who submitted it, but would be interesting to ask Leidos and their sub-subs how they feel about the status of tech transfer to industry. So my read on that, and someone can correct me if they want to clarify, is that is asking, do we feel like we're on track? Feel like we're behind? Feel like we need more work? I get that. That's the general sense of it, I suppose. Is that? So you don't.
So I'm not sure if we can answer that question. I don't know, Eric, do you have any idea?
From a perspective of transferring technology from NASA to a system integrators such as ourselves that are helping implement TFDM, I feel like we've gone a long way in echoing Sean's comments of having the NASA folks involved in the activity as we've done design reviews with the FAA up front and all along. We've been able to go through and keep pace, and we keep in constant dialogue about the activities and progress of ATD-2 and the impacts it has on TFDM design. So, I think we have the technology there in place on the FAA side. I think if the question is, how is the technology and the transfer with industry as far as TFDM, I think Mike has gone through and said a couple times, this is coming, and the information is coming there as far as TTP and the TFCS. You've seen a lot of that briefing materials here, and the efforts of the CSIT team to go through and help bring that to bear as far as implementation. Hopefully that has helped answer some of that question.
Okay, thank you. If it hasn't, someone can email and clarify that, and we'll try to get it answered with the other 193. That was the last question that we had online. So what I would like to do is, to Sean's point about thanking the team, if you presented materials in this conference, if you wouldn't mind standing, if you help organize the conference, if you wouldn't mind standing at this time, if you approve someone's travel, and if you wouldn't mind please standing at this time to be recognized, I would appreciate that. If you, come on presenters, stand up. Thank you. This team worked really hard, and not just NASA folks. Obviously, thank you, FAA. Thank you, Lincoln Lab. Thank you, ATAC. Thank you, MITRE. It was excellent. These materials are just really, really good. I'm so proud of the work you guys have done, and thanks everyone again for traveling out to this event. And we really appreciate your attention, especially at these dog days at the end here. I know it's been long, but it's also been great. So thank you again, and that's it.